We have another fantastic panel ready and charged up in front of us. And this panel is again going to be talking on higher education. How can emotional intelligence transform higher education? We have an eminent panelist in front of us. Welcome, Dr. Uma Warrior. Welcome, Dr. Kanupriya. Welcome, Dr. Anju Chawla and Mohan Kumar. And these three doctors and the doctorates have they're living, eating, sleeping, breathing, all emotional intelligence. That's what they are. That's how they tell. They're applying EI like anything. And Mohan and I, we have had interesting and amazing conversations many a times. And we always tell that why not EI in corporates? So then we also, while we were in higher education panels, we always used to tell that it should not be in corporates. First, it should start in higher education. So we should be those bridging the gaps between the academia and the industry to have EI in higher education. So over to Rachna to, introduce, Srikanth to do the introduction and start over the panel and give it over to Mohan Kumar, who will be moderating this session. 60 minutes panel discussion on EI and higher education. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annapurna madam. Really a privilege for me to introduce Mohan Kumar sir. Mohan Kumar is working as a practice head for Wipro Limited. His area of expertise is in digital technologies and deeply engaged in competency development.
Can we spotlight and can we have Anju Chawla also on the spotlight? Please, can you close the slides and have all the 3-4 panelists? Yes? Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Srikanth.
Yeah, thank you. Mohan Kumar is working as a practice head for Wipro Limited. His area of expertise is in digital technologies and deeply engaged in competency development and enabling hyperscale cloud practices. He holds electrical engineering degree and MBA in HR. He has been elected as Fellow of Institute of Engineers, India. He has over 32 years of IT experience, and today he completes 14 years in Wipro Limited. He has relocated to Bangalore after staying for 15 years in Australia. Mohan is currently involved in community projects in the area of youth leadership and provides mentorship to students pursuing engineering, management, and other studies. He has taken keen interest in initiatives of Rotary International and deeply involved in vocational environment initiatives. He is a certified cricket umpire and has been involved in volunteering global sport events. Mr. Mohan is a part of Board of Studies and also a member of Industrial Academia advisory committees for several colleges and universities and contributes to National Assessment and Accreditation Council, that is NAAC, and National Board of Accreditation Assessments, that is NBA, representing the industry. Over to you, Mr. Mohan Kumar, and I would request all the participants, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and after the panel discussion, I will be handing your questions to Mr. Mohan Kumar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Srikanth. Very good afternoon to everybody. Am I audible enough, please?
Yes, Mohan.
Thank you. So I know it's a deep fire chat we had. Just on the lighter side, just extending my profile. Wipro, they call me CEO also. Don't jump off the chair. Just on the lighter side, I'm called a Chief Entertainment Officer. I don't know whether you heard of this before. And also Chief Fun Officer and Chief Morale. So something I've learned being with sports, associated with sports, to have a balanced emotion. I know emotion is a word, energy in motion, right? So sometimes if you are an umpire and watching the game, you have to control the emotions, keep that balanced view, very neutral aspects. So now you will ask me, if it's all this, when do I really get to work, right? A lot of things I do, but I have a lucky boss. Probably another 2 years of retirement. He's asked me to do things on the weekends, and so fantastic. Thanks, Annapurna ji and the team. Amazing three people panel. I can coin them as EI warriors, right? If I cumulatively, if they have almost more than 75 years work experience. So let me start reading out profile of Dr. Uma Warrior first. An academician and psychological counselor with over 26 years of experience in the field of education and IT industry. She is presently a professor in HRM and industrial psychology at CMS B School, Jain, deemed to be University, Bangalore. She also holds the post of Chief Counselor for Jain Group of Institutions. She has presented and published numerous research papers in national and international journals and has been a panel discussion member for several international research forums. She is a SHRM Senior Certified Professional and a member of AIBFPM and AIMS. She has authored several books in HRM and organizational psychology. She is a certified psychometrician. Dr. Uma is a research guide for PhD students at Jain University. She is a UGC NET certified professor. Her doctoral research was in emotional intelligence. She has a double master in HRM and industrial psychology. She is a Board of Studies member for Jain University, VTU and JSS Mysore. Dr. Uma is responsible for incorporating a course on emotional intelligence in the course curriculum of Jain University and has conceived and institutionalized Vishwas Jain University's Student Guidance and Counseling Center. She has been an active participant in several panel discussions organized by national TV channels. And also she's been with the symposium at NIMHANS. Her research interests include emotional intelligence, mindfulness, learning style preferences, employer branding and motivation, turnover, intention analysis, body image dissatisfaction, brain rating, and organization role stress. Our life mantra is live and let live. This is amazing stuff. I actually curtailed this. Welcome Dr. Uma Warrior to this wonderful panel in transforming higher education. I'll go to our next panel member, Dr. Anju Chawla. Dr. Anju Chawla is an international certified emotional intelligence coach, author of book, The Emotional Intelligence Coach, a seasoned trainer in the field of emotions, and a certified EI assessor as well. She caters to varied demography from students to doctors to chartered accountants to company secretary and corporates across India and globally. Our areas of work is transcending behaviors of leaders while working on their productivity, personality, and performance. That's the 3P. Welcome, Dr. Anju Chawla.
Thank you so much.
And we have another panel member, Dr. Kanupriya Profile. Dr. Kanupriya, Professor, Associate Dean at School of Law, Ansell University, Gurugram, is a PhD in Constitutional Law from Punjab University, Chandigarh, with 14 years of blended experience in legal practice and academics. With over 20 articles in national and international reputed journals, she is also the editorial member of few legal journals. Her book entitled Immigration Laws by LexisNexis highlights the socio-legal impact of overseas Indians in USA, UK, and other developed countries. She is also editor of Contours of Real Estate Laws published by Thomson Reuters. She is featured in Board of Editors of NGT Reporter and has been the editor of conference proceedings of International Conference of Environment organized twice by National Green Tribunal in 2017. She is a member of various organizations like IUCN, CWSP, GRDS, etc. She has been honored with Women Empowerment Award by DSLSA and NDMC. She is also a recipient of Award of Honor by Maharaja Agrasen Universities for her valuable contribution in curriculum and pedagogy development. Her expertise is widely sought as judge in various moot court competitions, resource person in various national and international conferences. She has been instrumental in establishing research centers in organizations she served. Our teaching areas include constitution law, administration law, and research methodology. Wow, such a great people. I'm really honored to moderate this. Let me put a caveat. I'm also a learner. I know in the industry, For us, emotional quotient was introduced about a decade back. Of course, we might be practicing, but we didn't have any structured methodology. Let me start before I ask questions on a higher education. An IT person will always give some data analytics. Very quickly, we have about 40,000 colleges in India now. I'm sure you're 35% are already doing postgraduate level programs, and a little bit on the downside is only 2.5% they do PhD programs. Around 40 lakh students and 26 lakhs diploma holders, and around 3 crores people study in higher education. I thought that is a little bit of trivia for us. Before I start, my first question to Dr. Anju is, why does higher education need to focus on emotional intelligence?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, the whole team, Annapurna ji, for inviting me here. And for this wonderful question, Mohanji, that why is EI needed in higher education? I would rather start retrospectively. So while I go and coach the corporates at the level of directors, senior directors, and the problem boils down to the base that, oh, I do not, that is the director, the senior director, or maybe the vice president, when these people, they end up accepting that I never accepted the feelings I was experiencing, that gives me all the more a solid reason to recommend it to our higher education. That why do we wait? Why do we wait for our youth to first undergo that gruesome journey and then accept that, oh, I am not in acceptance? Why can't we introduce this beautiful, this much needed oxygen like discipline right in the higher education, maybe even before that? That's my take on your question, Mohanji.
Thank you, Dr. Anju. My next question to Dr. Uma Warrior. I think you have done a lot of work in this area, amazing stuff. I'm sure you have come across, internationally, how this SEL we are talking about, social and economic, this one, emotional intelligence, learning practice have been embedded in universities from your exposure.
So SEL, I was just listening to yesterday, I was listening to many of those panelists, and even today morning. So today morning, the sessions were, there was a lot of emphasis given right from the keynote speaker on social and emotional learning, SEL. So that's something I truly believe that a student does not live in silo. We all know that none of us live in silos. So it's an ecosystem that we need to address. And this was identified by many progressive nations like Singapore. In 2005, the Ministry of Education in Singapore have introduced or institutionalized SEL in the schools. And that actually helped the students at the school level to have a holistic development rather than just having academic curriculum as the focus. They also had a lot more of development, personality development with respect to social and emotional learning. So that was a SEL structure that they had. So that is a starting point. Daniel Goleman in 2012 instituted something called KSEL. So KSEL is a non-profit organization where, which promotes the 5 different, I think that was also discussed today morning. So at the cost of repeating those things, I would like to still talk about those 5 dimensions that are basically spoken or institutionalized, I must say, trained in higher education. That most of the North American universities do have these 5 components of KSEL. KSEL is collaborative and collaborative academic, social, and emotional learning. That is KSEL. So this is institutionalized by Daniel Goleman in 2012. And basically, it talks about those 5 dimensions of it's a 5-dimension framework. It's self-awareness, self-motivation, social awareness, relationship management, and responsible decision-making. So if these 5 dimensions are taught at the higher education level, I think the work of corporates is much easier when you have to recruit a person from the campus directly, when you have a campus placement, or you have to, at some point in time, we also speak about campus placements, right? Whether it is from ROA perspective, or maybe that's the need of the hour. We often go for recruitment from the campus. So those SEL learning or KSL learning has got a lot of impact on employability quotient. So there is some edge, career edge was the model which is used, which is a model used for employability quotient, where the edge is about your experience, work experience, EDGE, work experience. Then G is your graduation, that's your technical knowledge. Then what is that, EDG, edge, right? So you also have your degree, so that is the D. Then you have your E, where you that E is your emotional intelligence. So this is actually in 2014 or 15, if I'm not mistaken. This kind of a model on employability was brought in, and this actually revolutionized the way higher education looked at emotional intelligence. Because as one of the panelists in the morning was talking about, I was paying keen attention to that. I think it was Miss Neeraja, if I'm not getting the name correctly, was talking about India being a nation where employability is something which is a high stress area, high important area. So I think thereby there is a high need for Indian universities also to embrace the concept of emotional intelligence. Of course, we have many of the foreign universities like North American University, Bellevue University, or Long Island University, Northwestern University, Yale University are all having either a 15 credit course or at least an elective course. And I conducted a small little survey with some 30 students who are studying abroad for this particular EI Summit. And I found that many of them are aware of, in the North American universities, that is a very stark difference from North American university to universities in some other nations. They all knew about emotional intelligence. They all had a course in their university curriculum, either in the form of an elective or, as I mentioned, as a credit course. So very recently, I think in August 20th or something, in Indonesia, President University also had brought emotional intelligence in the curriculum. So they teach all the 4 dimensions as per Daniel Goleman model in each of the semester. So they have 4 different dimensions taught across there for the first year graduate student. So that's their attempt from the foreign university. And India also is not behind, if you actually ask me. We have Bombay University, Mumbai University having a master's program in emotional intelligence and life coaching. That's a very interesting course. Also, as mentioned by moderator Mohanji, we also in Jain University, we are also forerunners in having emotional intelligence in the course curriculum. So we have institutionalized an elective course. We couldn't have a full-fledged course on that. Probably that will be a consideration in the very near future. So we have a course on emotional intelligence, and so we are running this course. We have been running this course since past 3 years. So my experience, I would like to share. This is a first-hand experience. We had students from Afghanistan last year. So they went back to Afghanistan. We got a mail from them saying that this is a course, emotional intelligence as an elective course. They've picked that course. Actually made them learn beyond what is a course curriculum and help them to, face adversities in a much better way. Coping skills are improved and resilience is improved. So I think that was a first-hand feedback, and that kind of motivation inspires us to continue being with students with more training on emotional intelligence.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. I was just wondering, why can't we make emotional intelligence as a mandatory? Why we give that as an elective? Is there any? You want to throw a quick?
So that's what I was just telling. If progressive nations are following that, why not us? So probably the policymakers, maybe we should send a request to the MHRD ministry, where there is the policymakers make a decision on having emotional intelligence SEL or a KSL in the course curriculum as a credit course. So we have in Jain University a 30 credit course as an elective though. But if it is made as a compulsory course, I think that will help a lot of people. So yes, probably at the end of this VI Summit, we have to have this as one of the objectives of the summit should be to have addressing this issue to the policymakers and help us, all the college, higher education institutions in India to have one course of AI.
Thank you. So that leads to, it's an extension to Dr. Kanupriya, how EI plays an important role in transitioning from campus to corporate in creating future leaders.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Annapurna ji, for giving me this opportunity to share my views on emotional intelligence, which is in fact a very important ingredient because we teach students a lot many things in the school times. But I think in the last discussion we had, we talked about moral science, which is there in the school education, and that helps you to settle down yourself in the higher education. But what from higher education takes you to a professional journey? So that's really very important because, we have faced a lot many situations, specifically in the legal field, when we say, you have done 5 years law, 3 years law program, and after that, when you jump into the professional arena, it's altogether different, and the students, they really have the sleepless nights to settle down themselves in the profession. Why does it happen? There are two things which are really very important for any student to join the corporate sector and to land into profession. One is when he's sound from within, which we generally call as the intrapersonal skills. And the other is when he's able to collate himself with regard to others and create his own space in the market there. That is with respect to interpersonal skills. So these two kinds of skills are really very important for a student, and emotional intelligence is one such area through which both these can be easily attained. So when we talk about self-awareness or self-management or self-performance, these three are the ingredients which a person gains through intrapersonal life skills. So nowadays the curriculum is such that even UGC, even the Ministry of Human Resources Development in their National Education Policy of 2020 have emphasized on being empathetic to the students and create an environment wherein they are able to express their skills. Focusing more on skill building. What about those essential ingredients which are actually required to develop the skills of the students? So that is the area where they have set a target of improving the skills, but how to grow that journey, that is very essential. For that, emotional intelligence is very much required. Although we have always tried to build it into our curriculum, not as an elective course, not as a mandatory course, but it is an integral component of each and every course. So if we are teaching the students to present a proposition or to give an interview, it automatically peeps in. So these skills are essentially very required, but there's always a journey which helps the students to grow up to that level. So that is really very important, and I would definitely demand, and I'll go by Uma ma'am, that yes, we need to bring it as a compulsory component. UGC has talked about environmental studies, but how do we achieve a good environment till the time you have these skills? So, the basic foundation lies here. This is the basic requirement that the student should be able to settle down himself in the higher educational institution, and then to progress to the corporate, he must own those skills in his own self. The other is interpersonal skills, because what is required in the profession is that you are aware what is happening around in the world, that is social awareness. Second is he must be able to maintain relationships with the other people in the fraternity, because we always insist on the more you have the relations, more it is easier for you to settle down yourself and create your own space in the profession. Third is, on the basis of his performance depends the performance of other individuals who are associated with him. So I'm not only impacting my own performance by being strong from within, but I'm impacting somebody else's performance also. For example, if I am a leader, my team's performance depends upon my performance, and vice versa. My team's performance is the outcome of my performance. So it has to be integrated. So that is why we always lay emphasis on building these skills in every student, so that it is very easier for him to settle in the corporate world. So that transition phase has to be very actively dealt with, very emotionally dealt with?
Thank you.
I hope I'm able to answer the question, Mohanji.
Thank you, Dr. Kanu. I was speaking to somebody at Azim Premji University. One of the things Mr. Premji took a lot of effort in bringing the effectiveness, teacher effectiveness. So they have put a lot of work. I also spoke to them and just for as preparation for this summit. But my question related to this to Dr. Uma Warrior, how EI can help teacher effectiveness, right? How can, from faculty point of view, we can help them improve
I
their...
also was, sure, thank you. I was also going through the chats by, I think, one of the participants, which is a very relevant question. If you would talk about EI for students, how about the teachers? Which is that, I think probably that's the question indirectly asked to me, and you gave me a chance to answer that way. Thank you for that. So I also truly believe that, as I mentioned in the beginning, no student is living in a silo. So it's not that we have to train only the teachers. We also have to train the parents. We also have to train the peers, correct? So it definitely is required for all of us to have a training, especially teachers. Why? Because the students are at the impressionable age and they many times role model a teacher. And so if the teacher, as one of you correctly mentioned, if the teacher is not having the right emotional intelligence, so that can become counterproductive. So thereby, this SEL training, what we were mentioning, social and emotional learning, has a very important module on educating the educators on emotional intelligence. So there is a the trainer program for in SEL for educating the teachers. So that's a part of it. Then why should we have that? I'm sure some of you already mentioned that. So it brings a classroom culture that resonates effective learning and better problem solving and interpersonal skills. So because now many times in higher education, what happens, unlike in younger classes, more or less, I think that's an age for them to have those biological and physiological changes, and there is a constant requirement for them to challenge the authority, right? So in their mind, teacher is an authority and they need to challenge. So that's what the teachers, I am also teaching in an MBA B school, so I know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure the teachers in the forum also empathize with what I'm saying. So not that every student will do that, but there can be some challenges where teachers face with respect to the class decorum or the culture, which disrupts effective learning, and also the interpersonal skills and problem solving ability. It's just that those skills are not transferred because of the kind of a disruption. So if you train a teacher, you train an educator, automatically these things will fall in place. That's one thing. Also, it improves the cognitive empathy of a teacher. Now, let me explain this to you. Cognitive empathy is a person's ability, as we all know, a person's ability to understand others' emotion in the way they have it in their mind, right? So, for example, many times we teachers think that when I used to give this, I'm talking about my own example, I used to give tough assignments to students, especially also when we have to give specific individual assignments, so specific group assignments. I will look at the group and I will see, okay, these students can do something a little more, which needs a little more effort. So I used to award them that kind of an assignment. So in my mind, what I thought was that, okay, I'm doing something, I'm giving them a challenging job, thereby I'm motivating them. So this is what I thought. But at a later point in time, my cognitive empathy made me understand that that's not how the students understood. They can feel that the teacher is targeting you, right? But teacher actually wants to praise you or make you look different from others. So emotional intelligence training for a teacher helps a person to have a better cognitive empathy. That's my observation. And it helps to wear multiple hats. So at a higher education system, a teacher is not only expected to teach. Teacher is expected to keep abreast of what is happening in the subject, in the field, write a lot of research papers and publications, and apart from completing the portions, right, also include, when we talk about the new pedagogy or andragogy, we may say, that keeps changing, and we need to see which is the most suitable learning pedagogy that we have to use in a classroom. Students are having different learning preferences like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and read and write. So we need to, so when we are preparing, when we make the session plan, I'm talking about higher education, I'm sure it is done in the lower level as well, at the +2 up to +2 level as well. We have the session plans where we need to have, we need to cater to different learning style preferences. We do that, right? So you have to do all those things. We have to have a blended learning method. there are quite a lot of challenges, quite a lot of, I will not say challenges, I will say opportunities. And but you're just one person and all of us have 24 hours. So how do we, and on top of all this, you also have to do college administration, you have to put your head in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. How will you do that with all these limited resources? You're expected to perform all these duties. You're supposed to wear multiple hats. So how do you do? A teacher also need to have a coaching in emotional intelligence, a training in emotional intelligence. So thereby, I think I am answering that question by the participant. I think the name is Chinmay, if I get it correct. Also, so there are some, now this is something which I am talking from my experience, some research facts I wanted to bring to your table. From Yale University, that Mark Brackett's research talks about a teacher with higher emotional intelligence being highly positive about teaching and receives better support from higher ups, as well as reports greater satisfaction. So a teacher who is satisfied in the job will also be reflected in the classroom. So student can easily make out the difference between a teacher who's just doing the job for the teaching for the sake of doing the teaching job as a job, or a teacher who's passionate about teaching and then doing it. So a teacher who's undergoing an emotional intelligence training has an advantage, has a lever to use in the class, where he or she will be more liked by the students, peers, as well as management. And the last point what I wanted to make here is that at higher education, we are supposed to have a right balance, slightly equilibrium between being professional in the class and very informal, approachable in the outside in your staff room. So how do you do that? That's very difficult, right? You again have to have different mindset. You have to be very kind and very friendly with the student outside the classroom. At the same time, you cannot show the same interest in the classroom that will be touted as teacher being biased, right? So if you train a teacher on all these things, I think none of these complaints will ever come, and teacher will also have a high level of job satisfaction. So that's what I wanted to talk about, teacher training a teacher on emotional intelligence to make living better for a student as well as a teacher.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. So again, extending the similar, I think, Dr. Anju, you will have some examples that you have already trained corporates, and some of the stuff can be used for faculty as well, like role plays and exercises and role reversals. If you can highlight from your experience.
Sure. And before that, Dr. Kanu, Dr. Uma, it was a delight listening to you, the way you are connected to the topic. My God. So Mohanji, coming back to your exciting question, I would say, because stating problem is one thing and giving solutions is another. So how can the faculties be trained in EI? See, things start percolating from the top. So how about introducing just one very simple, I would say, an exercise to each and everyone in the organization, institution. That is, let's start praising the slightest of good deed. I'll come back to this line again. Let's start praising the slightest of the good deed, and always have that appreciation in public. Whereas if there is a criticism, let's have that in private, that too with mindful of words. This may sound very flamboyant when I'm talking about it. This may sound, oh, no, what new is she telling us? We all know it. Yes, we all know that walking in the morning is good, walking after dinner is good, but how many of us do it is the question. Similarly, here, this is a very powerful exercise if it can be introduced in institution, in organization. The culture change is what we all will observe, because like the previous panel was talking about rapport building, the rapport gets built instantly. What is rapport? Rapport is mirroring, rapport is trust, rapport is giving that presence, and you give that presence. That's one. That's just the tip of the iceberg, and various other things. Now, many a times we misunderstand emotional intelligence as if the person who is emotionally intelligent is not allowed to feel bad, is not allowed to feel angry, is not allowed to feel any unpleasant emotions. But that is a myth that should be broken a support that should be given to all of us present here and somebody who is not even here in the summit, that you are a human being, you are a bundle of emotions, and it is perfectly fine to feel whatever you want to feel. The game lies in how you express it. So feel anything you want to feel, but respond in in a manner that you think first and then you act. So if a very simple rule, which I have picked, which is encouraged by ruler of Mark Brackett, that is the Yale University. I formulated a rule because I also train masses globally in EI. So we run our batches in emotional intelligence. That's a global product with NLPCM. So there's one rule that I coined, and that is RAUPER. RAUPER. It is not any innovative rule that I have come up with. It is inspired by a ruler from Yale University. So R stands for recognized. Recognize that you have an emotion. Recognize that. Do not be oblivious to it, even in the institution. So if these are the things that can be practiced, R, as I said, is recognize. A is acknowledge and accept that emotion. That emotion can be pleasant, unpleasant, whatever. Don't care about it. What you should care about is the you. That is, understand. If you express the way you want to express because of this emotion, what will happen? Understand the repercussions of it. If there is any cloud in understanding, and if there is no cloud in understanding, whatever be the case, take a pause. P is for pause. Take a pause, that is, give a break state to yourself so that the neurons in your brain get diverted and they are not accumulating their negativity in one direction. And then E, that's evaluate. Evaluate whatever you are going to take as an action now, because by now your neurons have got that break state. So now your evaluation will be way better balanced than it would have been before the P, that is pause. And finally, R is respond. So Mohanji, these are the tip of the icebergs that can be followed in institution, in organization, in family, anywhere. Now coming to the various activities, role plays, certainly. Role play, maybe during some kind of, I would say, a festival, like annual festivals, the institutes, they keep organizing various festivals, Teachers' Day and many other days. So why not have a role play that time? And that role play should not be like a 2 days game. Okay, we have to present this socket in 2 days because we do not have time during the curriculum. In 2 days, let's just do it. No, please give people time to not only build on their dialogues, but also build on their emotions in those dialogues. Cultural change is bound to come. These are my 2 cents here for now, looking at the paucity of time. So yes.
Thank you, Dr. Anju. In fact, I have been practicing that you talked about giving time. So sometimes I give time for assignments for the students, right? I give them a week's time and they go their micro groups and then come back. And so fantastic. I think a lot of insights to it. Just in the interest of time. So last question on faculty, and then before we go to student aspects, to Dr. Kanupriya, what EI traits are needed for faculty to have a bit of a higher sort of EI quotient?
I just attended the immediate previous session where a lot was talked about empathy. So nowadays there is a gradual shift in dealing with the students, and we at Ansel University are following a particular methodology and a particular scheme which is called mentoring scheme. So this is one-to-one connect with the students. Like, for example, one faculty is made a mentor for approximately 14-15 students. And there is a group wherein they, discuss with each other, where they are very open with each other, and the student mentee can connect with the mentor at any point of time, not only for professional issues, not only for curriculum-based issues, but for personal issues as well. See, for example, there is some, a family problem in one of the students' house, and he is very upset, and certainly that particular reflection will be there on his performance in the class as well. So how to resolve that issue is the duty of the mentor. So mentor connects with the student in such a way and gives a kind of pleasant environment to the student, so that the student is not feeling a gap, or the student is not able to shift to the uh, curriculum environment from his personal environment. And maybe with the faculty being the senior and having a life experience, they are better able to resolve those issues being faced by the students. So this kind of connection is really very important. It's not like you have a counselor and the student goes to the counselor and discusses problem. It should not be like that. It's a lifelong relationship. So I have almost more than 15 years of experience by now, and I've seen that the students who were originally connected to their mentor, so they have become judges, they are working in very good organizations. Even now, they connect to their mentor for one reason or the other. So this should be the kind of relationship. It is not only confined to the school or to the higher institution, but it takes its journey to the lifelong. And this is purely based on empathy. So empathy is not the synonym of sympathy. Sympathy is altogether different. We should not relate it with sympathy. Empathy is where one is emotionally connected to another person. And as per Daniel says also, this is one of the most essential ingredient of emotional intelligence. We might not be talking about emotional intelligence in higher institutions, but we certainly talk about empathy towards the students. So this is not that, okay, fine, you are not able to get good marks, we'll give you extra marks. This is not empathy. Empathy is to generate a sense of awareness in the student, that how you can perform better. What is your role here? What should be your future target? How you have to decide your goals and how you have to walk through that journey. So all these taken together gives a shape to the teacher-student relationship in the form of mentoring, and this can lead to very good results. I have already observed in my and if the time is not very short, I would like to share a story here, wherein there was one of my student in the class. So it's a story of almost 3-4 years back. He was a Christian, so he was suffering through some disease or something like that, wherein he was not able to collate himself with the rest of the class. So there was a lot of peer influence on that student. But otherwise, he was very active and interactive in the class, and he used to respond to all my questions. So while he used to respond to my questions, the other students used to laugh at him. Why? Because he was not able to get good marks in the examinations. He was having knowledge, he was responding, but he was not able to get good marks. So I myself, mentored him for almost about 6 months, and the result was after 6 months he was able to clear all his backlogs, come to a CGPA of almost 8, which was earlier 5. So I could see that difference, and the way he started his relationship with his peers was awesome. He was no more a laughing spot in the class. So, we have seen results. It's not that we don't implement EI. We do implement EI, but not in the name of EI, but in the name of empathy and other, relationships. So this is what I wanted to say.
Thank you. So let's shift from educators, from faculty educators to the learners now. My question to Dr. Uma Warrier: what are the best tools and techniques to strengthen EI? Today we have a very disruptive times. I know emotionally disconnected. They're not going to colleges. Socially, they were. I'm a fun guy, right? Even I'm missing out on all the fun. Similarly, the younger generation, right? I actually think I'm half the age, always in my mind, and that keeps me alive. So what are the things you would recommend, in terms of I know we have covered a lot of stuff in prior, but your point of view, please.
I think, yeah, definitely there are some tools that I would like to discuss today. There are multiple tools. I'm sure people who are coaching in emotional intelligence would be using it. Dr. Anju must be using it very often. But I'll just list out few which I generally use when I conduct some training programs for students. So one of the tools, so let's first understand that these students are having this kind of upheavals in their life cycle. They are at such a part of the life cycle that they have to face a physiological and biological, psychological disturbances, right? Partially because of this amygdala hijack, which we often speak about, where amygdala has the receptors for estrogen and androgen. So they'll have an increase in interest in the opposite gender, so thereby leading to multiple, distractions, and the exposure to the social media, and relationships are greatly dependent on their interactions on social media. So these are certain things, and apart from that, they have a fear of missing out, what we call FOMO. So this generation has got a lot of opportunities, a lot of options for higher studies or studying abroad, jobs in India, abroad. So multiple choices, and they are so confused as on what should be the right path. So when I did this particular research, more than 25% of the students had this issue of their career concern or future concern, I must say. So how can we use certain tools of emotional intelligence to help these students? One could be mood mapping. So this again is based on this ruler model of Yale University Center for Emotional Intelligence by Mark Brackett. So it's based on that. So mood meter is what is something that mood meter technique. So basically you draw a 2x2 grid chart and observe your energy levels on x-axis and pleasantness on y-axis. So it's like this: x-axis, energy level; y-axis, you have your pleasantness. And in different parts of the day, you make a note of how is your mood. So now they have categorized red, which is the topmost left corner, where you have low pleasantness and high energy level, red. Then below that is blue, right below that is blue, where it is low energy level and low pleasantness. Then next to that is green, which is high pleasantness but low energy level. And top of that, that's the last quadrant, is yellow, which is both high energy level and high pleasantness. So if you mark your mood on different days, you mark, and you can thereby understand in a particular part of the day, this is generally how I feel. So for example, if I have to take my own example, I feel very calm in the morning. I get up early, so around 4 o'clock I do a lot of productive things. So now you need to strategize in such a way. So that's the tool I'm talking about. You need to strategize in such a way that each of the color, each of the quadrant, you have to choose the right task, match the quadrant with the task. What is your mood with the task? So when you are highly anxious, or angry or aggressive, that's how you feel in the red zone. That's not the time for you to take a decision, right? So definitely you must not take a decision when you are in the red zone. So when you are in green zone, that's a zone for collaboration. So you give and receive feedback. Your red helps you to. So red is basically making you think on a fight or flight response, right? Your body is ready for that. So what do you do at that point in time is that you probably can make a persuasive argument, or this helps you to rise to the challenge. So you start thinking differently, right? So that's red for you. Then blue is something which you are low in energy as well as low in your pleasantness. You should use it for something that you can do on your own, so that you do not disturb others. You do some editing. So that's what I do: editing of my research articles, or proofreading, or think critically about the presentation slide that I have to make for a training, etc. So that's your low energy and low pleasantness. Yellow, which is the most ideal, high pleasantness and high energy level, which is not possible every time for us to retain. You can start thinking about, you can think about starting a new project, or a brainstorm. If you are working in a group, that's the time for you to do brainstorming. Ensure that the rest of them are also, the team members are also in the yellow zone of their mood. You are in a yellow zone, and then you are making the group members to do a brainstorming when they are in blue or green. It's not going to happen. So you need to also ensure that you need to understand that what is their mood level. And then, so how do you know that You probably can ask. So you know how to do this for yourself using the mood meter. How you do this? You ask questions. Ask them. So do you think this is the right time to talk about this? Ask them. You find that is conducive for your discussion, you must do that. And so this basically is that yellow zone is a time for you to tick the things off from the to-do list. So you have done this, you have done this, etc. Second is meta moment techniques. It's what I wanted to talk about. Is again based on the ruler technique. So basically, I will call it T and 4S. T and 4S is trigger, sense, stop, see, strategize. Use this. So basically, meta moment is happens with everyone, right? It's between the space between a trigger and a response. So how do you use a space between a trigger and response decides the success of your response, success or failure of your response. So what do? You use T and 4S. So trigger, you identify what is a trigger for that. It's very similar to ruler method. Identify the trigger. What are the triggers that you have, which causes that kind of an emotion, productive or counterproductive emotion? Sense, how is that particular emotion, that trigger impacting us? You sense that. Then you stop, pause, take a pause, like Dr. Anju said, take a pause. That's most important. So meta moment is there. You take a pause, then you visualize. That is
looks like there is a
time paucity. Okay, so this is the last technique that we will talk. And then you strategize. So strategize. So next time when you do, when you come across that kind of a counterproductive trigger, how do you take that forward? So I spoke about 2 techniques today.
Very good. Thank you. As a technologist, I'm just thinking how we can even automate all this, like analytics, descriptive, diagnostic, and prescriptive and predictive and all that, right? That is always a technologist hat. A wonderful framework you have really highlighted. My last 2 questions before, I'm a certified umpire. I want to go by time. So 2 more questions. Bear with me. Dr. Anju, stress management in terms for how we would do, I think this is a very, very generic, but still for students, how you would be handling stress among the higher. Yeah.
Sure. So I have been fortunate enough to have worked with roughly a dozen of B schools in Delhi NCR. And yes, stress management during the exams, after the exams, at times, relationship breakups, etc., etc. The best thing which has already been suggested by my very credible friends, that listen them out. Very important is listen them out. Where is the trigger? They may not be emotionally literate, but as an EI person, you are emotionally literate. Rope in a certain names of emotions, help them label those emotions, go to the trigger, and if you allow me, I call this as SIER. S is the stimulus, I is the interpretation, E is the evaluation, and R is the response. If you follow this SIER cycle, we get to know that what was the stimulus that was the reason of the stress, and what emotional meaning did this person give to this trigger. For example, very quick example, and then I call it off because I also believe in time. So marks, you missed the scholarship by 1%, and you in your own head are thinking, oh, what will I tell my parents? Stress building up. What will I tell my parents? And you go home, they're not even bothered about what is your percentage. They're only bothered about, are you happy? You met your friends after such a long time? Oh, great. So what was that an implicit trigger or an explicit trigger? As an EI person, we can always help these young minds to reach to that level and then sort it out. So lend them ear, generate emotional literacy in them, bring them to the trigger, and then find out if it is an implicit stress that they are taking or is there an explicit stress, and we can help it out accordingly. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Dr. Kanu, last question. How EI is managing stress in medical students? I know Annapurnaji's daughter is now doing postgraduate degree. Maybe she will answer, but from your thing, how, they're performing a lot of surgeries and with COVID situation. Do you think that EI is a subject they will have to go through, or will it help all this performing their critical duties.
So Mohanji, if you observe these days, lot many people have started watching videos by various gurus and spiritual people on YouTube. Why is it so? Uh, I would like to share, my own experience. Almost a month back, I had to go through a situation where my both the parents, they were diagnosed with COVID positive, and I went to their place and I had to deal with the situation single-handedly altogether. So I know the students in the hospitals and other places, they might be going to a much more worse situation, which I had to go through. But I definitely term these people as warriors. That is why we, call them as COVID warriors. They are not less than the soldiers who are right in the front while fighting a war. So it's a kind of war only for them. They are not only saving themselves, but they're saving the entire nation, the entire humanity. So they need to strengthen themselves from within. That strength comes from motivation, from inspiration, from giving them the credit. As Dr. Anju said, that we need to just appreciate. More we appreciate them, more they will get motivated, and more they will be fighting at the forefront for this war. So this is very much essential that their mental stability is maintained, because I've seen nurses, wearing those PPE kits and, all equipped with all the things. After that, then you have to insert a needle in a patient. How does it feel? It's really very tough. It's really very difficult for them. But at the same time, if you're strengthened from within, because here the thing is that you should have an intrapersonal skill, which is your own strengthening from within, and you're dealing with others. This is your interpersonal skill. I'll come back to the same point. The same two essential ingredients of emotional intelligence. So this is really very important for them. We cannot personally give them trainings or courses at this point of time, but if we try to float certain YouTube videos which are a credit to the work they have done, which are a kind of motivation for them, that would be really very helpful for them.
Thank you. Mr. Srikanth, are there any chat questions? I'm not looking at the chat. Any questions are you for the panel?
No, Mohan, I think we have taken care, because I think Dr. Uma has also answered some of the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just to summarize, it was a wonderful.
Hello?
Yeah. It's just to summarize, Annapoorna-ji, a wonderful panel. A lot of learnings for me, a lot of acronyms, of course, the methodologies, and I'm actually getting more interested to formally do an EI certification myself, probably with the help of Annapoorna-ji and team. And I'm also suggesting whether we are for the faculty development program. We have more than 700 universities in India now. So why don't we have this similar two-day function, this sort of curriculum blended in FDP at least, much, in the campus calendars and other stuff. And that's a good proposal. Really, thank you very much. Again, it was a wonderful, lot of insights from educators, learners, from a general EI point of view. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohan.
On the dot, 2:30.
You've done an absolute great job, and thank you so much for that. Thank you, Dr. Warrior. This is a small token of our appreciation for sharing your insights. And as usual, I always love your insights. So thank you, Dr. Kanupriya, for sharing your insights and being there with us. Thank you for honoring our the request. Thank you, my dear friend, Dr. Anju Chawla. Very great insights. I know we have a lot of good conversations. Thank you for supporting us in all ways, every time, and motivating us. Yes. Thank you, my dear friend, Mohan Kumar. Thank you for always helping us in the thing. Thank you, thank you. So can we have the trees which have been planted on all the 4 people's names? Yes, thank you, Dr. Uma Warrior. We have planted your tree in Karnataka. As usual, that was my choice. And these trees have been sponsored by GAP Digital Solutions.
This is a very emotionally intelligent gift, I must say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I know that your room is always filled with trees, but definitely this is a digital certificate, but your actual tree is there in our Karnataka state, and you can monitor that. I'll send it across to you. Thank you, Dr. Kanupriya. We have put your tree in Uttarakhand, Himalayas, closer
Most
to
beautiful gift I have received from the summit.
Yeah, thank you to our sponsors, GAP Digital Solutions, who have been quite, I should be really grateful for them for this wonderful gift for us. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Anju Chawla. Your tree has also been planted in Uttarakhand, close by to your place. We track it over there, and maybe if you all are close by and things are okay, you can all visit your trees and see them in your physical way also. Thank you to our digital partner, our gratitude partner, GAPS Digital Solutions, for getting us all there. Mohan sir, thank you. Your tree is also planted in Karnataka. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much for honoring being there with us. Thank you so much.